These are my top reasons for using Apple Motion. And number one is Open in Motion. When you buy plugins, that's titles, generators and effects, chances are they were created in Motion. This means that in most cases, you can open these in Motion to modify or adjust them. You're not breaking copyright, and the developers of the plugins won't be concerned. If they didn't want you to open the plugins, they'd have locked them, as Apple does when it supplies its plugins within Final Cut Pro. The second reason is how easily Motion integrates with Final Cut Pro. Now this may seem obvious when you can open in Motion, but when you create an animation within Motion, you can publish the ability to change or modify that effect directly within Final Cut Pro, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And number three, this is perhaps the most important. It's just so easy to get started in Motion. And let me show you by creating the ring the bell animation I'm using in this tutorial. My name's Bruce, and if we've met before, welcome back. Otherwise, please like and subscribe and press the bell so that I can make more videos like this for you. Open Motion, choose 1080p or 4K, and that's over to you. Select 50 frames per second for PAL or 60 frames per second for the USA. When the Motion window opens, delete the type text and the background items. And this is the ring the bell animation that I'm going to create. Select the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle in the viewer. For ease of use, I'll open the HUD from the top menu and change the color to red. If you want to adjust the color in Final Cut Pro, go to the inspector, click the downward chevron to the right of color and publish. To add the text, select the text tool and draw a shape inside the red rectangle. Center the text. And you can change the font in the hub to High Tide and position the text, then resize it, change the size of the rectangle to suit. And now to animate the text and the rectangle. Since they're both inside the group, they'll both be affected by any behavior that you add to that group. But first, let's name the group. It's not so important here, but when you've got a complex animation with lots of groups, it's really worthwhile to name the groups. So we'll name this one Text and Shape Group. Select Behaviors in the top menu and under Parameter, select Overshoot. And I'd call Overshoot a bit of a Swiss Army knife because of its flexibility. I'll rename the Overshoot behavior to Scale Overshoot, as I'm going to have other Overshoot behaviors later. Nothing will happen when you make changes in the inspector until you apply the behavior to a particular action. It'll be Scale in this case. Apply to Properties, Transform, Scale, and All. Change the start value to -100. And when you play it, it takes up the whole length of the clip. That's much too long. So I'll shorten the overshoot and play again. You'll see that it bounces 3 times. That's the default setting, and it's called cycles in the inspector. I'll change the cycle to 1 and play again. Next, I'm going to add a behavior to rotate the animation. Hold the Option key and select the Scale Overshoot and duplicate. Change the name to Rotate Overshoot. And since this is a rotation, I'll apply it to Properties, Transform, and Rotate. And you'll see there that there's a number of different options of the X, Y, and Z. I'll select just a few of these here so you can see the differences. Anyway, I like X and Y, so let's stick with that. You could change the rotation cycles. So I'll try 4 and increase the length of the rotate overshoot in the timeline. Now I'll add a further overshoot to give the shape a bit of a wobble, and that'll be seen for the whole length that it's on view. Again, select the parameter behavior, and this one I'll call wobble overshoot. And apply it to the properties, transform, position, and the X value. The start value will be 200 and the end value will be minus 100. And note that the default will only go to 100 for that start value. But you can overwrite that and take it up higher. So I put 200 in this case. And it'd be nice to have the choice, when this is in Final Cut Pro, to play the in animation or not. You could have the choice. Add a marker. Use Shift+M. Move the playhead from the marker and double click it. Select the build-in optional. And you'll see this when the title's published in Final Cut Pro. Finally, I want to add a fade out at the end. Select behaviors and basic motion. Fade in, fade out. Since I don't want to fade in, change the fade in time to 0. Now let's make that optional in Final Cut Pro as well. So at that point in the timeline, press Shift+M for a marker, double click and select Build Out Optional. Now I'll save the title and call it Ring the Bell and save it to Favorites. In Final Cut Pro, drag it into the timeline. You can reposition the title by selecting the transform and dragging it to a location, or you can change the size. You can choose the build-in animation or not, as well as the fade out. You can change the words and the font and the color. And you can change the color of the shape. There's no doubt that Apple Motion can do a lot, but you need to know how to do it. And I'll show you face-to-face how to get the most out of Motion. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and press the bell so that you can be notified of further tutorials. And did you see the ring the bell notification?